So I thought I'd double up, give people a little bit of a tour of where I am. North Vietnam at the moment. Incidentally, there is not a lot of people with psoriasis here. I've been asking around in my broken English using my Google Translate. Mostly unheard of. So I'm thinking, why the hell? You know, because if you go have a look in the UK or in the USA, people with psoriasis, you can get the same Asian people, the Chinese or the Japanese or the Koreans, they have the same rates as everyone else. But here, it's pretty much non-existent. So if the genes are the same, it's the difference is the difference is the diet and their lifestyle. So let me give that a little bit of a breakdown. Here, people eat real food. They don't eat all of the processed stuff. You see, there's a difference. Real food doesn't come in packets. Real food, you can see what it is. Beef is beef, chicken is chicken, vegetables are vegetables, fruit are fruit. They don't need labels. They don't need packets. What you're buying that's got a label on is a formula. It's a combination of different things and concoctions they put together. So first of all, it tastes great. It looks nice because it's got all these added colours. It lasts on the shelf for ages because they've taken out all of the stuff that, you know, bacteria like to eat and poison the bacteria. It's usually got fructose in, which actually acts pretty much the same as cyanide in the body. Okay, it's not strong, but yeah, cyanide. It goes directly to the liver, wrecks the liver, stops it from functioning all of its processes that it needs to do, and means that you have to keep going back on the food that you've just bought and eating more and more. So people tend to end up with a fatty liver disease. That knock-on effect means that they're going to, everything they eat, if they're got fatty liver disease, is going to put weight on around the waist and cause visceral fat. That in turn means that your body's not going to produce enough serotonin, which is necessary for the brain to switch off some of the fear responses that are in the amygdala. So the thing that's different here, not just the fact that, you know, they eat proper food, they don't eat all of the junk everywhere you go. You can see they have fresh fish in the shops, coconuts, and even though it's polluted, even though it's got lots of more pollution and people wear masks everywhere, they still don't have psoriasis. But if you take them and put them in the States, like I say, or in the UK or most Western countries where there's a huge market for processed food, then they're going to have the same rates as everyone else. And in fact, the difference is about 130 times more than they do when they're here. So that's an interesting thing. Now, how much of it has got to do with the brain and how much has actually got to do with the diet? So, the brain is probably 90% of the problem. Because when the brain isn't happy, or you're living in fear, or you've got chronic stress from something that happened in your childhood and it's not been resolved, or PTSD, where you get flashbacks, constantly making you feel afraid, every single time that happens, it's going to trigger off the fight or flight response. And whenever you get triggered for the fight or flight response, the digestive system switches off. All the blood rushes away from the gut and to the big muscles, so you can take flight or fight. That's the definition of it. So there's a problem there with the brain because it never switches off and goes back into the parasympathetic. The only time it can do that is when you bypass it by eating sugary food, because you need the glucose. So what happens is you get caught up in this cycle of eating junk food, and that exasperates the problem. The liver gets bunged up, the digestive system gets damaged. Consequently, we've got this huge cycle going on where everything is all messed up. So you need to deal with the stress, the chronic stress. You also need to deal with a lot of the things about dopamine addiction. You know, if you're constantly seeking attention from your Facebook or your Instagram page or your phone, constantly checking on it, you have a dopamine addiction. All right, so that means that basically the prefrontal cortex is going to get damaged. What causes that? Again, it's caused by cortisol. There's loads of problems which can easily be resolved, which don't require dealing with putting on creams or taking medication or all that kind of stuff. So it's just a thought, you know, but one of the main things is I'm a little bit pissed off with is all the doctors that jump onto this, and they know that they're not helping people. They know that these topical creams aren't going to work because they see people all the time. They have to keep coming back over and over again. They know that if they put them on the biotics, that they're going to be stuck on them for the rest of their life until they stop taking them, and then all of a sudden it all comes back again. So they know, you know, one of the things that switching off your immune system does is basically it makes you more vulnerable to all the other stuff that comes along. You need a strong immune system. And in fact, all of the people, the majority of people I should say, who, you know, were unalived from the COVID virus that came along, had metabolic disease. A lot of them were overweight. The healthy people, the people who didn't have any issues like that, basically just bounced it off. So you need your immune system. You need to be strong. And so the doctors know about this, you know. But, you know, unfortunately, they're under a lot of pressure because they have huge loans to pay off, medical bills from the university loans, a house to pay for. You know, they've got ambition. They want a new Mercedes. They want a good life. They've worked hard for it. And so, you know, they don't say anything, but it's about time they did.